Welcome to the SowGood to GrowGood podcast, the show where we explore how changemakers and innovators are building sustainable systems for a better future. I'm your host, John Kane Gonzales, an entrepreneur fascinated by the mission of making change in the world to turn ideas into real scalable impact. Today's guest is Todd Thomas, founder and CEO of Woodchuck, a renewable energy startup that transforms construction wood waste into clean energy using AI and bioenergy with carbon capture technology. He's also the author of the Unleashing Abundant Energy trilogy, 3 Amazon #1 bestsellers on innovation, AI, and the bold entrepreneurs shaping our energy future. So welcome to the show, Todd. Excited to have you here.
Thanks so much. Thrilled to be here. I appreciate being on.
Let's just jump right in. What was your path to becoming this intersection of entrepreneur, author, and climate tech investor?
So I've had kind of a fun career. I've gotten to work in a bunch of different verticals. I say that the common thread has always been leveraging emerging technologies and, most recently really leveraging AI. So Woodchuck is actually the third AI platform that my co-founder Dre and I have done together. Honestly, more excited about Woodchuck than anything we've done before because it really brings so much value in so many different areas. It's fun to be able to bring, I know AI it's all the rage, just everybody's talking about it, both positive and negative. So it's really fun to show really positive impacts that we can make with this technology.
So your third AI startup, just for context, what were those other two about?
So the first company that Dre and I worked together, we were at Stanley Black & Decker, and I ran the Radical Innovation Accelerator. And we were really looking at construction tools and manufacturing and how to kind of track and optimize energy use. So that was pretty cool. So we built an AI platform to track energy use across an entire job site or on an individual job, and then give you through software the ability to click and offset to offset an individual job or entire job to make it energy net zero. So that was a cool project. So that's where he and I met, and we worked together, and we spent a lot of time actually out in the field. We would build prototypes and we'd bring them to construction sites and let construction guys play with the tool and see how they interacted with it and how the UI worked for them, and then how well the tracking and the offset worked. And we built a really good working relationship. So then I went to a really cool company called Aiden Auto. Aiden Auto is connected car technology. So really, turning the car into the next connected device. And there's, literally an unlimited number of use cases that you can use once your car is connected. But some of the really exciting ones we're looking at, EV fleets. And how do you maximize the efficiency of an EV fleet across a geography? How do you maximize where the charging is and the timing of charging your different fleets? So you keep trucks moving, keep material moving, while at the same time maximizing or optimizing your energy use. So all kind of, exciting things. The great thing about AI is all about driving efficiencies, and driving efficiencies goes hand in hand with sustainability. So if you can use energy more efficiently, if you can use all of the available resources more efficiency, that goes hand in hand with sustainability. So the two motives usually are very much in lockstep.
Right. There's a obvious theme emerging there with AI, energy, and then the early startup with construction as well coming into Woodchuck. Tell me about that. Why construction?
So the genesis of Woodchuck really starts with North Star Clean Energy. So North Star Clean Energy and their parent company, CMS Energy, is the public electric utility for the state of Michigan. They have 3 bioenergy facilities in the state of Michigan that produce electricity to support all the homes and businesses. They have the capacity to burn biomass, but they didn't have enough biomass. So they're forced to augment their fuel supply with fossil fuels. So they were looking for a way to catch up on their biomass supply immediately so they could stop using fossil fuels. But at the same time, they also think they need to double their energy capacity over the next 10 years. So how could they source enough biomass to stop using fossil fuels immediately and continue to grow and double that capacity over the next 10 years? So they were looking for a solution. So they reached out to me and said, look, you've got a weird eclectic background across AI and sustainability and manufacturing and construction. Can you come help us solve this problem? And we did this hand in hand with Alloy Partners, which is a venture studio. So we went to North Star Clean Energy and we worked with them. And when people think about biomass, they typically think about forestry residues or residuals and agricultural waste. That's where people look right now. In order to really solve their biomass problem, we thought we needed to find a net new source of biomass to really find a totally new source that could be reliable and provide the volume that we need over time. So we first started looking at construction. Construction produces a massive amount of wood waste. In the US alone, last year, the construction industry sent over 41 million tons of wood to landfills. That's a huge amount of material. Our landfills are filling up with wood. They're 30 to 40% wood by volume. And that wood is a really good energy source. Construction wood waste might be a 2x4 or a pallet. So that wood is already dry. It's already semi-processed. And so that wood can be quickly processed into biomass, and it can be very high energy, low moisture, which is just perfect for energy production material. Compare that to, say, a tree out of the forest. You need to debark it. It needs to be dried out. So urban wood can actually be a more cost-effective, more highly energy-dense feedstock for energy production. And if we can divert all of the wood out of the waste stream, so instead of sending it to landfills, we divert that wood, we process it into biomass and turn that into renewable energy, we're really solving two problems at the same time by connecting them, right? We are reducing waste and we're turning that waste into renewable energy. So less waste, more energy. It's really kind of an elegant solution. So that was the hypothesis with which we launched Woodchuck. It's now been almost exactly 2 years, and it's going really well. What we're seeing from the construction side, when we go to a construction company and say, hey, this is our idea, this is how we think we can help you, they love it because construction companies are under more and more pressure from their end clients, the people building the buildings, to provide sustainable options, to reduce their waste, to reduce their landfill dependency. So we can come in and really give them a way to provide that value to their end users. And of course, we track everything with our Woodchuck AI platform. So we can give them weekly reports or monthly reports that tell them exactly how much material was diverted, how much CO2 was avoided, and how much clean energy was produced. And we can even tell them which neighborhoods or businesses that energy supported. So it's really powerful. And
Wow.
we're now at the point where we're starting to get great feedback from our clients, from the construction companies, telling us their end clients, the Fords, the GMs, the Amazon, the IKEAs, that they love that we're helping them to reduce their waste. We're helping them to monetize their waste streams. They love the sustainability reports, and they want us on more of those projects. So it's really exciting.
Wow. There is a lot to unpack there. That was amazing to hear all that. Just for those who don't know, could you explain just a little bit more about what biomass is so they can understand how this whole circular economy works?
So biomass is essentially organic material that can be used in the production of energy. It could be used directly, like our client, North Star Clean Energy, uses that to produce electricity. It can be used to produce biochar. It can be used to produce hydrogen. So biomass is pretty flexible, but the beauty of using biomass typically is you can produce energy and you can capture the carbon and store that carbon or reuse that carbon in a different product. So it can be net neutral or even net negative energy production, which is fantastic. So when we call something biomass, for us, right, we start with construction waste. So a pile of pallets, a pile of 2x4s or cutoffs or plywood, to us, that's construction waste, or we might call that feedstock. We take that and we process that. And what we mean by process that is we'll send it through a huge grinder that just shreds it up into little teeny wood chips. We'll send it over a magnet to pull all the metal out, all the fasteners, the nails, the staples, anything that's in there. We'll send it through a couple of different sieves to get out any dust, sawdust, cement, sand, dirt, all of that. At the end of the day, we want really nice little clean wood chips. Part of where we use the AI. The AI can look at feedstock and tell us how clean the feedstock is before we start processing it. Then as we process it, the AI can continue to watch that wood and tell us how the quality of the wood is improving. If it can continue to be improved with further processing, it can also tell us, are there permanent contaminants in there that cannot be removed, like fire retardant or preservatives? If it has that type of contaminant in it, then it can't be used for energy production. We can still divert it out of the waste stream. We can still process it, and we can use it for various industrial products. So it won't go to the landfill. We'll find a use for it, but it can't be used for energy. Wood, where the contaminants are removable, metal, dust, all those types of things, we'll continue to process that to help it reach its cleanest state. We actually separate our biomass into 4 different tiers. if we can get biomass clean enough, if it's 99% clean wood chips, we can actually use that for remanufacturing. So we can turn it into new particle board or new press board. And then that carbon is captured in the new materials, whether they're used in construction or furniture manufacturing. So that's great. If we can't get it quite that clean, then it can be used for various energy production systems. Typically, we like to partner with folks that also have carbon capture. So we're producing energy and capturing all the carbon. And North Star Clean Energy is a fantastic partner for that.
You walked us through a little bit about how the whole process works. But do you go to the construction sites, or how does the wood get to you? And where do you do the sorting? Because I remember that being a key part of the process is the pre-sorting. Is that happening at the construction sites, or is that happening at your facility?
We do that at the source of the wood, wherever that source of the wood is. So for us, primarily construction sites. So it can also be manufacturers. We support manufacturers as well. Kind of historically, at a construction site or a big manufacturing site, you have a big 40-foot dumpster, right? Those huge steel boxes. Everybody's familiar with them, right? You see them on construction sites all the time. And everybody just throws everything in there. So you've got wood, plastic, metal, Carl's Jr. bags, whatever. It all goes in the dumpster. And then lots of different companies over the years have tried to sort that material after the fact. So you've got all these commingled materials and you're trying to sort them afterwards. It's very labor intensive. It's very inefficient. People have tried to use robotics to do it instead of people. People have taken multiple different strategies, but no one's really cracked the financing on that. It's inefficient, it's labor intensive, and it just doesn't work well. You can't make the math work. And we firmly believe that in order for something to be sustainable, it can't just be environmentally friendly. It has to be financially stable. It has to be financially sustainable. Otherwise, it's literally not sustainable. It's got to be environmental and financially sustainable. So we take a different strategy and we utilize AI to help us with that. So when we go to a construction site, we will set multiple bins. We'll put a bin for wood, a bin for cardboard, a bin for plastic, a bin for metal. We do concrete, we can do asphalt. We really can look at whatever waste streams that construction site is producing. And then we want to pre-sort all that. So we will put AI image capture systems on the dumpsters, and we'll watch the material that goes into the dumpsters. So if someone puts the wrong material in the dumpster, the AI will identify that and we'll get that removed before that container is pulled off site. So when we pull a container of wood off of a job site, it's typically 95 to 99% clean wood. So that's fantastic. Now there really isn't, labor-intensive sorting that has to go on after the fact. So we'll pull that dumpster full of clean wood, we'll bring it to our facility where we'll start to process it. And again, we'll continue to use the AI throughout the processing to really maximize the percentage of biomass that reaches those highest tiers of quality. So we get the highest, best use for that biomass. The other thing that's cool about it is, this isn't some science experiment where we're hoping to be able to do this in 2 years or 5 years or something like that. We're doing it right now today. We built the MVP fairly quickly. We actually were on site with our first client within 90 days, started generating revenue within 90 days. And we continue, we're building the airplane while we're in flight, right? We're continuing to mature our AI, every day and build out features on our platform. But this is a real world problem that we can address right now today. So on a construction job site, we might be diverting, hundreds of tons of wood a day, which is hundreds of tons of carbon that are being avoided on a daily basis. So we're making a real impact right now today. So I think that's one of the things we're really excited about. We're not, some startup that's working on something that might work 18 months from now. We're on job sites, diverting carbon, diverting wood right now today.
Yeah, proving value. I read I think it was an Amazon case study that you did. Could you share a little bit more about that? That seems like a huge win, a huge success to prove the value and the concept of Woodchuck.
The very first project we did was an Amazon distribution center. Our client was Ryan Companies. They were the construction company building this center. Amazon has really high diversion goals that they would like to reach. And our client was having trouble reaching those goals. There just weren't a lot of options out there. There aren't a lot of waste diversion companies that provide anything like this. So we went out there and the first month we diverted their wood and they loved it, right? We diverted, I think we diverted like 84 tons of wood our very first month on their job site, which isn't a big number, but that was our first month and it worked. And Amazon loved it, but they immediately gave us the feedback of, hey, this is great. We love what you're doing with the wood, but we have a lot of different waste streams. Can you help us with cardboard? Can you help us with plastic? Because what they really wanted was to divert as much valuable material as possible to minimize the remaining waste that would go to a landfill. And they also wanted a single report that they could view that would give them insight into all the different waste streams. They called it a 360-degree view of their waste streams. So we're like, yeah, we built our platform to be very flexible because we knew we didn't know what we didn't know, right? So they wanted us to do cardboard and plastic. So month 2, we diverted wood, cardboard, and plastic. And yeah, using the AI allowed us to get to really high levels of efficiency. So we ended up being on that job for about 6 months. And over the course of that job site, we were able to divert 99% of their wood from that job site. So it was a huge success, and we learned a ton. And Amazon gave us great feedback. So our reports today, a lot of why they look the way they do and the details that they have are based on a lot of great feedback from Amazon.
What was like one of the maybe the surprises from that project in particular that you just didn't think was going to happen, or something new that you learned from that process?
So to a funny, surprising day, the first day that we deployed our cameras live in the field, we deployed our cameras, and the next day we pulled up the data to look at it. We're excited to take a look at this new data from our image capture system we'd been building for months. And the data was total gobbledygook. It didn't mean anything. Like, what the hell? It had snowed that night. All the wood was covered in snow, and our system had no idea what snow was.
Uh-huh.
So that kind of led to how we built our facility in Grand Rapids. So in Grand Rapids, Michigan, we built a full-scale biomass processing facility. So we can process literally thousands of tons of wood a day at this processing facility. We also use it as, we call it our AI Innovation Center. So we've got 10 full-size dumpsters on site, and we have 2 image capture systems on each dumpster, and we are constantly rotating materials. So we use that to identify wood, cardboard, plastic, metal, but also different types of plastic, different types of metal, and all the different contaminants that you might see. But we do that at scale outside in the weather. So we're not building this in a computer lab. We're not building this on a test bench. We're doing it at a full-scale processing facility. So if it rains, or if it's cloudy, or if it snows, whatever happens, we're getting really quality AI images that allow us to make our image recognition very accurate, regardless of weather conditions. Because when you're on a real construction site, you're going to get all sorts of weather. So you can't have an AI algorithm that only works on really high quality, beautiful images, right? We need to be able to work on whatever images you can capture based on what the weather is. And so sometimes people say, hey, this sounds really cool. Will it work at scale? Absolutely. Come to Grand Rapids, visit our facility. We'll show you RA working at scale, and whatever the weather conditions are that day, it's going to work. So it's pretty fun. We enjoy it.
This is phenomenal. And like the immediate feedback, you get the immediate gratification loop happening. So that's amazing. Amazon, so big name. You mentioned IKEA as well. I think you said Ford as well. How are you getting these, big name clients, and how are you, like, what are your strategies for getting more? Because if every one of these big manufacturers got involved, I know you can understand what sort of impact that would make, but that would be huge for a lot of things.
Yeah, so I'd say we're very fortunate. We are an Alloy Partners Portco, right? We came out of them. So they're a venture studio. And the way that Alloy works is they work with a large corporate partner that has a problem, and then they help them to essentially build a startup and launch a startup to solve that problem. So Woodchuck was launched as the solution to North Star Clean Energy's biomass problem. And the beauty of that is you launch as a startup with your first client, and North Star Clean Energy is also our very first investor. So you're launching with a first client and a first investor. I mean, many startups never hit those milestones and never truly launch. So to be able to launch with those guys is great. Also, Alloy Partners brings a huge network of partners, and they can make some really powerful introductions. And so typically, for a little teeny startup like us to go approach a company like Ryan Companies, it'd be very tough to get that first meeting. But if we get introduced by Alloy to Ryan Companies, and we can say, yeah, we are working in partnership with North Star Clean Energy, and they will consume all the biomass we produce. Well, that puts you in a very different category. And Ryan Companies took the meeting, and we met with them, and we pitched them, and they said, yeah, let's do this Amazon project together and see how it goes. And then that project was really successful. So now we've got a big, $1 million, multi-million-dollar contract or project that we can point to as an example with name brand clients. So now we can approach other big contractors like Walbridge and Barton Malo and Turner, and we come in with some experience. So again, a lot of that just comes from the incredible strength that Alloy puts behind a startup. They call them advantaged startups, and I'd say that's totally been true for Woodchuck. We definitely were an advantaged startup when we launched, and it's really helped us to develop great momentum and develop an amazing client base fairly quickly for, again, a relatively small little startup.
Wow. Yeah, not many startups have that advantage, as you just described. It sounds like a key partnership in how you attract or get your customers, rather. I mean, if you wanted to add 20 more customers, by the end of next year, how would you go about doing that? Would that be through Alloy, or are there other mechanisms that you're using to increase the traction of Woodchuck?
So right now we're at a great stage. We've built a couple of really strong partnerships with some big companies, and we've gotten to do projects with them for some of their largest, name brand clients. So we're in a good position. They like the work we're doing. Their end clients want us on more projects. So we've got a pretty nice pipeline of projects lined up for 2026. And we're starting to have a lot of, really strategic conversations of who do we want to go after next? What are the next big construction companies that we want to add? And if we're successful in bringing them on and doing projects for them, what do we need to do as a company from a finance standpoint, as well as an operational standpoint, to make sure that we could support additional work? So I guess step one is we need to make sure we have the financial backing and the operational setup to support the pipeline of work that we already have identified. And then if we want to your question, if we want to do 20 more projects, is that 2 more contractor partners, 3 more contractor partners, and what do we need to do to make sure that we can be successful in supporting that additional work? So we're having those conversations right now. And of course, like anything in the startup world, a lot of that comes down to funding. Can we raise enough funding to really accelerate growth? So yeah, I'd say as a startup founder, you are always in funding mode. As soon as you finish one funding round, you're starting to look at, okay, what does growth look like for the next couple of quarters? What does growth look like for the next year? And what funding do we need to support that? So you go in different cycles of funding, but you never stop fundraising.
Right. Yeah.
Now that being said, at the same time, lots of startups raise a lot of capital and burn through that capital and just have to keep raising capital to stay afloat. We've actually built a really solid fundamental business of diverting waste, turning that to biomass, and selling that biomass. So we've got some decent revenue. So we have a relatively low burn rate. And so we are raising capital, but that capital isn't just to stay in business. Our current operations can keep us in business. We're raising capital for growth.
Right. This is almost like a unicorn story, if I can say that much. It seems like the trajectory is, shooting off with the level of success you have and the pipeline that's already forming. And it's hard to say that.
Knock on wood. I hope that's true. I'd say that the proof will be in the pudding.
Pun, right?
The next. Yes. The proof will be in the pudding in the next 6 to 9 months. As we launch a bunch of these new large projects, can we execute? They say execution is the chariot of genius. That's one of my favorite sayings. A great idea is wonderful, but if you can't execute on it, nothing happens. So we're at the stage now where we know we have a good concept. We've got clients telling us, yeah, we like what you're doing. We want more of it. Now we have to prove that we can execute and execute at scale. So I'd say in the next, 6, 9, 12 months, we'll know if Woodchuck's really going to work. And if it works, maybe we can be a unicorn. Maybe that's possible. But maybe we struggle scaling. We'll see what happens. I'm optimistic. Obviously, we have high hopes. But I think the next 6 to 12 months, we've got a lot of work to do to really prove that we can execute at scale.
What do you think is going to be like the roadblocks, the barriers? You mentioned operations and finance. What are those in particular, or if there's something else that you think is going to get in the way or making it challenging, rather?
So Woodchuck is kind of a unique company. We are an AI software company, right? We've also built hardware. We built our own proprietary image capture system. So that's a hardware software system. So we're a software company. We're an AI company. We're also a hardware software company. We're also an operational company. We actually process the biomass ourselves. So when we launch a new job site, we might need to buy 1,000 horsepower horizontal grinder and a bulldozer and an excavator and maybe a forklift and a couple of operators to operate all of that equipment. So there's real capital costs. There's real upfront operational costs. And of course, all operation comes with operational risk. Machinery breaks down. People get hurt. Those things, construction projects get delayed. Construction projects get downsized. All of those things happen. Those are all risks. So we we think we have a great concept. We're hearing great things from our clients. But yeah, there's always operational risk. There's a lot of moving parts. And when you're on if you're building an AI data center, right, those are huge projects, like literally physically, kind of the hyperscale data centers that are building today, the job site might be a mile by a mile, like these massive projects with thousands of workers, and where they're operating and pulling material and bringing it to our site and processing it and then shipping it off site. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and it all needs to be orchestrated appropriately. So on our staff, we've got, Dre and I architect the AI platform, and Dre does all the design and builds the development. We've also got, heavy equipment operators all within our company. So we've got a little teeny company with a small staff, but a pretty diverse set of job skills that we need to be able to execute on these projects. So yeah, on the surface level, we're just turning trash into value, right? Pretty simple.
Right.
We're diverting wood and not taking it to landfill, all pretty simple stuff. But when you really get into the details of operating on a huge construction site and utilizing AI to help you divert that, there's a lot of moving pieces that all need to be orchestrated.
The question that comes up for me is small team. So every person that you add to the team is going to be crucial in some respects. How do you go about finding those key players or key teammates? What is the selection process like? And I guess how easy is it to attract people to Woodchuck?
We're really fortunate on that front as well. I mean, Dre and I obviously is our third company together, so he was the obvious choice to be my co-founder and launch this together. And again, Alloy was also a big supporting on
Right.
the HR side. They helped us find Matt Wheeler, who's our very first employee. So he's currently our GM, runs all of our operations in Michigan and Indiana. And we basically put together a list of like 20 features or skill sets or experience that we wanted this first hire to have. And we gave that to Alloy partners, hoping they might come back with someone that could, maybe hit half of the list of things we were looking for. And they, fairly quickly came back and said, "Hey, we think we found your guy." And it was Matt Wheeler, and he ticked pretty much every box. So he's a war veteran. He did 4 tours in Afghanistan, and he ran operations and logistics and construction. He ran 300,000 men under his command at one point. And Army guys, they're fantastic logistics and infrastructure. Then he came home and he went to work in waste hauling, and he went to work in recycling. He worked for a couple of startups. He went to University of Michigan and got his MBA with a specialty in sustainability and a specialty in leadership. So he ticks every box. He's fantastic.
Right.
So he has been an absolutely crucial key employee from day one. And so our first core team was really good. And then we started to do some projects, and we were using, actually my son and his best friend became our trucking brokers. And they were brokering all of our trucking and all of our local hauling for us. And they were doing a great job. And we got to the point where, look, we need a couple sales guys and a couple operations guys to help us with our oncoming projects. So we recruited my son and his buddies, that's Carson and Zach, over from the logistics company. And they came in and they've been amazing. So they can work on the sales side. So they can sell to construction companies, and they can pitch our operations, they can pitch our technology. And then on the back end, they can really help with the operations and the infrastructure, setting it all up. So they've been great too. So we've been really lucky on those fronts. And I'd say the other thing that's amazing is, so my co-founder Dre does all the design work, and then we outsource all of the actual coding to a company called Folio 3. So Folio 3, Dre and I've used them at each of the 3 companies we've been at. So they do all of our development for us, and they're fantastic. We have a great working relationship with them. So it allows us to keep our team really small as we outsource that coding. So we control everything. All the decisions are made between me and Dre, particularly Dre, on the technology side. But we've got this great coding team that can bang out the work and build an amazing platform fairly quickly. So that's kind of our team. And now we found some great operations guys in the field. But yeah, so far we haven't had a bad hire. And, we certainly will at some point. But right now, again, knock on wood, pun intended. Right now, all of our hires have been good hires and have worked out well. So we're fortunate. We're happy. We've got we're 8 people now. So we're still a pretty small team. And they're all really quality employees. We're really happy.
Wow. It sounds like a dream setup, dream system, dream team. everything seems to be humming really well, founder to founder, there's always some sort of challenge somewhere in this in the organization. What are some of the challenges that you might be experiencing? And this is more for the audience who is looking to get into something like clean tech or waste diversion. And for people who may be where you are right now, what are some of the things that you're experiencing as a challenge internally? And what are you doing to fix those challenges?
So something always goes wrong. Something breaks, somebody gets sick. There's a problem with the AI algorithm. A tractor breaks down. Things happen all the time. Projects get delayed. All of those things happen. And so I think you need to anticipate and plan on problems occurring. Plan on things not happening on the schedule that you expect, because those problems will occur. You don't know what the problem is, but you know something's going to go wrong, because something always does. And if you are operating in a circumstance where you have no margin of error, when something goes wrong, you can quickly get in trouble. And I would say a lot of cash flow is always an issue. If you're really tight on cash flow and you're not well capitalized, and then the big project you were counting on gets delayed 30 days or gets delayed till next quarter. Oh my God, now you're in big trouble, right? And that does happen. So I think you want to be very mindful of trying to make sure that you're well capitalized. And a lot of that comes down to having really good partners and really good initial investors. I think a lot of times startups just go out there and they're pitching to every VC and every potential investor, and they view it as one-sided. And you really shouldn't. You should view that as a two-way interview. Certainly you're pitching your concept and your team to them, but they're also pitching their investment thesis and how they can help you to you. Not every startup is fortunate enough that you get to pick who your investors are, but if you are in a circumstance where, you can pick one investor over another, or you can, pursue a different set of investors, the right set of investors that's a good match for you can make a big difference and can help understand the challenges you're going through and make sure you're well funded for it. And of course, the other piece of that is the cash flow itself, right? Be slow to spend your money. Be slow to hire. Lots of startups have said, oh, we have all this growth, we need to hire people. And now all of a sudden their payroll comes in and the big project gets delayed, and they're out of money and they're out of business. Happens all the time. So be slow to hire, be slow to spend money, really watch your cash flow, have a plan B and a plan C in mind, keep a cash reserve set aside that you're not using for when that problem comes, and just be very conservative, because if you're too aggressive and you spend your money too fast and then the problem comes, that could be the death of your startup.
It's really sound advice. Now, if you had a magic wand, what would you use it for to fix?
It's a good question. I feel really fortunate in that we have a good client base. We have a good pipeline of projects coming up. We have good investors, but cash flow is still an issue for us. My job is to watch the money, so I wake up most mornings at 3 a.m. and do math in my head all morning long until it's time to get out of bed and have coffee. But I think most founders watching this are probably like, yeah, me too. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty common. And for us right now, we have this huge pipeline of work coming in 2026. So I'm spending a lot of my time fundraising right now to say, hey, look, investors, good news, we're growing fast. We've got a big pipeline, and that creates the opportunity that you guys get to invest more, because we need more capital to fund all of these jobs. So it's a good problem, but it's still a problem. If we're not well enough capitalized, we can't take advantage of this huge pipeline of work. We might have to turn down projects, which, as you're building your startup and you're starting to serve, these much larger companies, when they call you and say, hey, can you help us with this project? You need to be able to say yes, because if they call and they ask for your help and you can't do it, there's no guarantee they're calling you again. So when they call, every time they call, it's an opportunity. And if you can deliver every time, then you're going to build that relationship and you're going to continue to get more opportunities. And so in order to be able to do that, again, you need to be well-funded and you need to be managing your cash well. So yeah, that is the good news and the challenge for us all wrapped together right now.
Right. And just talking about that briefly, like scaling solutions that really make a change. What has been the biggest objection? Why aren't people just signing on? To me, it feels like a no-brainer. So what is that process with the funders that you're going out to? And what is the thing that's making it harder for them? Is it an education piece, or is it not understanding like the technology, or are they not seeing the ROI on the investment? What is it?
Inertia is always a challenge. Doing things differently is always a challenge. And that's true in every industry. And I think, every whatever industry somebody's in, they're like, oh, well, in telco, it's really hard to change. And, in insurance, it's really hard to change. In construction, it's really hard to change. And that's all
Mhm.
true. In every industry, it's hard to change. So when you're talking with superintendents and project managers on a big construction site that have been doing construction for 20 or 30 years, and they have been working with, the same handful of waste hauling companies all of those years, and they have the guy that they call every time to get them to break that pattern, to try something different, is always a challenge. And we've got a great concept, and we get to use all the fun buzzwords like AI and sustainability and all those great things. But still,
Mhm.
you're asking people to make a change to the operations, and oftentimes operations that they've been using the same operational process for potentially decades. And now you're
Mhm.
coming in and asking them to make those changes. That's a big
Mhm.
ask.
Mhm.
Again, I don't think that's unique to Woodchuck. That's certainly not unique to our industry. That's fundamental to any startup that's out there trying to disrupt. You need to have a strong enough story and a strong enough concept that people are willing to take a risk and try something different.
Mhm.
So for us, we really come at that two ways. Both of them come back to efficiency, right? So we are trying to drive efficiencies that reduce costs. So when we work with a construction company, we tell them up front, we think we're going to reduce your waste hauling costs by 30%.
Mhm.
Waste hauling is a cost of doing business. Everyone has to do it. So if you can reduce your waste hauling cost by 30%, that 30% savings drops straight to the bottom line. That adds to your profit. And so that is an incentive for the operations guys and the PMs that ultimately get bonused on the profitability of the project, right? That's a real incentive for them. At the same time, we can also offer the sustainability piece. We can offer the sustainability reporting and validation. And
Mhm.
the company's large enough that they have a sustainability team, they love that. If their end clients are big, global companies that have public facing sustainability goals, that can be a great tool for the marketing team, for the PR team, for the sales team. So we really try to approach it with multiple different values. We're going to help
Mhm.
drive efficiencies, reduce waste, and reduce costs. At the same time, we're going to provide you really detailed sustainability reports that you can share with your team and with your clients to show them how much waste was reduced, how much carbon was avoided, and how much clean energy was produced. So hopefully then that is a strong enough story that they're willing to take a chance and try something new with you.
Mm. That is, there's a gem there, a nugget for people who try to get into, social impact, social enterprise, and maybe you can put it in words for me, but the whole industry that we're in is it kind of has a not so sexy appeal in some respects, But I think the key message I got from you is it's going to be hard, whatever you do, and maybe do something that's going to change the world. Yeah.
Change is always hard. That's certainly no, if you're climate impact or, clean tech, we're focused on this area. It's the same thing. Change is hard. And there certainly is a perspective or a view out there that to be sustainable, to be climate friendly, is going to cost you more money. And
Hmm.
that's been the case sometimes in the past. But this comes back to something we talked about early in the call. Right? The power of AI is to drive efficiencies. So everybody likes efficiency. If you can use those efficiencies to reduce waste, everybody likes reduce waste, and reduce waste can also reduce your cost. So use AI to drive efficiencies that reduce waste, reduce your cost. Everybody likes all of those things. And then if you're really doing it correctly, if you're doing it well, or if we're operating the way we believe we're operating well, then to be more sustainable, to be more efficient, should be a cost reduction, not a cost addition. So when you're talking to the procurement guys and they're like, well, okay, we want to be sustainable, but what's it going to cost us? It's not going to cost you anything. We're going to save you money. That's a
Hmm.
strong pitch. So I think more people in the climate sector, in the environmental sector, they need
Hmm.
to be able to look at how can we not just be environmentally friendly, how can we be financially friendly? How can we
Hmm.
drive efficiencies that save people money? And there is an inherent way to do that in that if you're taking waste and you're turning it into value, or you're turning trash and you're turning it into energy, turning something that's you have to pay to throw away, and instead you turn it into something of value,
Hmm.
should be a way to make that math work and make it a cost reduction.
Wow. Definitely. Definitely. Todd, this has been great. I really appreciate everything you've shared. There's so much more I'd love to unpack, but we have a time limit here. How about tell us a little bit more about what you got planned for the next year, and where can people find you? And I'm also curious about these books, if you want to share a little bit about that before we wrap up.
Sure. Yeah. So for the next year, we're really looking at AI data centers and EV battery factories. Data centers in particular, that's the fastest growing sector within construction. Big companies, all sorts of big companies, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, they're all building data centers rapidly. So it's a huge growth area. And it's a really nice fit for Woodchuck, because when you build one of these AI data centers, there's a real focus on sustainability. AI data centers use a ton of energy. So whenever you're building one, people talk about the energy consumption and the carbon footprint. So if Woodchuck can come in and help you reduce your carbon footprint up front during the construction of the building, that can make a really big impact, because typically, over the life of an AI data center, 40% of the carbon may come from the construction of the facility itself. The other 60% comes through the operation of that facility. So if Woodchuck can come in and dramatically improve the sustainability of the construction of that job site, that's a really good story, and that's valuable. At the same time, if that carbon that we are avoiding, we also can use that to produce renewable energy, that renewable energy can be an offset to the energy that the AI data center is going to consume. So it really brings multiple benefits. And the other interesting piece is, when you build an AI data center, all of the high-end servers arrive on site in custom 6-sided hardwood boxes. So really nice wood. A lot of times they're made out of oak. So they're super energy dense, fantastic wood. And when you open that box up, you got a ton of cardboard and plastic in there, and the server sits at the very middle, right? Woodchuck can take all of those materials. So all of that additional packaging material, so that's above and beyond the standard construction waste. If you got all this packaging material, Woodchuck can take all of that and make sure that none of it goes to the landfill. All of it is diverted and either recycled or turned into energy. So AI data centers is a big focus for us, and EV battery factories. So that's really our focus for the next couple of years. There are AI data centers where the projects are already on the books. They're already funded for the next 2 to 4 years. And people are predicting that growth is going to extend for another decade. We'll see if it lasts that long. Certainly it's going to last 2 to 5 years. 2 to 5 years from now, maybe it levels off. Maybe it continues to accelerate. We'll see. But for the near-term future, there's going to be a lot of AI data centers going up, and Woodchuck would love to make sure that none of that material ends up in landfill. So that's a big focus for us. And that ties into the books. So I appreciate you bringing up the books. So the Unleashing Abundant Energy trilogy, like you said, it's done really well. All 3 books went to #1 on Amazon. In fact, at one point, the 3 books held the #1, #2, and #3 spot on Amazon for both green business and oil and energy. So that was pretty cool. That was fun. But it really touches on a lot of the big questions we have out there right now in the world, which is energy demand is absolutely exploding. AI data centers, the electrification of everything. Everything in your home is electric. Your cars are now more and more electric. So there's just huge demand for more energy. So how are we going to meet that demand? And people talk about, what's the silver bullet that's going to solve our energy problem? And the reality is there is no silver bullet. And with the amount of energy we need to produce over the next 10 to 20 years, we don't have the luxury of picking which energy source we want. Are we going to use solar? Are we going to use wind? Are we going to use oil? We're going to use all of them. If you look at the world's current capacity of energy production, and you look at where we predict that we need to be, like basically everyone agrees we need to double our energy capacity over the next 25 years. So in order to get there, if we take all of the renewables right now and throw nuclear in with the renewables as well, and we triple the capacity of all the renewables and nuclear, that doesn't get us where we need to go, which means you still need to not only use oil and coal, you need to increase. If you triple all the renewables and nuclear, you still need to use oil and coal, and probably 30 to 40% more than we do today. That's just to get us where we need to be 20 years from now. So it's all hands on deck. So it's, what are the energy resources in your area? If you're in the Northeast, the Northwest, the Midwest, there's a lot of biomass, and we should be using biomass. It's a great source of energy. If you're in Arizona, yeah, you should have solar farms everywhere. Every ceiling, every parking lot, every rooftop should be covered in. Texas is interesting. There's a lot of oil in Texas, but there's also a lot of renewables in Texas. There's a lot of wind and solar in Texas. If you're in Montana, if you're in Iceland, you should be using geothermal. There's There's so many different sources of energy. And the thing about energy is the closer you are to the source of consumption of energy, to the production of energy, the more cost effective it is. So the less energy that you have to import from some different geography, the more cost effective it is. So when you're figuring out your energy strategy for your location, what are the closest, most efficient energy sources for you? And it may even be a mix of energy. I would say the one exception to that, or the one potential silver bullet, could be nuclear fusion. Like nuclear fusion could actually, and you're a younger man than me. You may see it someday. I probably won't. I think we're several decades away. But if we can get to the point where we can actually harness nuclear fusion, and that's not nuclear fission. So fission is what we use today, right? Fission is what you see in the big reactors that you see. Nuclear fusion is a different process. It's more efficient. It's safer. Could truly be abundant. So if we can get to the point where we can cost effectively harness nuclear fusion, that could literally be an abundant energy future. And my kids may enjoy it. You may enjoy it as an older man. We'll see. But until we get to that nuclear fusion future, the transition between here and there is going to be decades, and we need every available energy source. That's what the books are about. The point of the books are, what are the different energy sources? What are their true costs, both environmentally and financially? Where do we want to get our energy? What's it really costing us? And let's have an honest discussion about that. That's what the books are about.
I'm definitely going to have to pick up a few of those. And I hope that you are around for this revolution, because we need more people like you to be sharing these ideas and keeping us on track more than anything else. Wow. Thank you, Todd. That was an amazing, information-rich session. I have a lot of research and study that I need to do. Is there any last comments you want to make? Any inspiring messages for our young social climate and entrepreneurs before we close?
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. Great questions. It was a fun discussion. So thanks for letting me just riff on energy and biomass. And I love talking about it. But yeah, for young entrepreneurs or old entrepreneurs, anybody that's looking to launch a startup, I guess my parting advice would be, don't start with some cool technology that you really like and go look to find a problem. Flip that around. Always start with the problem. Try to figure out what is the problem you're trying to address, and let the problem define the solution. So maybe AI is part of the solution. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's an operational, mechanical solution. Maybe it's a simple data science solution. Maybe it's a simple software solution. But start with the problem, let the problem define the solution, and you're going to have a lot more luck in building a startup and selling it that way.
Beautiful. Where can people find you, Todd?
So we are woodchuck.ai is our company site. So please come visit us at woodchuck.ai. Happy to talk with energy producers, happy to talk with construction companies. If you're interested in the books, unleashingabundantenergy.com. So please visit either site, or I'm Todd Thomas. I'm on LinkedIn. Ping me.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd. That was Todd Thomas, founder of Woodchuck and author of Unleashing Abundant Energy, Unleashing an Abundant Revolution, and Unleashing an Infinite Future. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with someone who's passionate about climate tech, systems thinking, or transformative ways to scale impact. As always, SowGood to GrowGood is about scaling solutions that matter, and every story we share helps plant another seed of change. So, thank you again, Todd. I think you answered the question that was actually what I wanted to ask this entire time was, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And I think the answer is 41 million tons. Let's hope.
Let's hope. Yes.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. Have a great day.